and get this fat woman and come and jump on it. I'm here all night long taking care of business.
Welcome back to another edition of Wrestling Real Talk. I'm Rude Boy, and this is my friend A.T. Huck, and collectively we have over 60 years in the professional wrestling game, and right here on this program, we break down and we dissect some of the greats in all of professional wrestling, and today is no exception. His swagger, his promos, the way he dressed, the way he acts. He's a former NWA World's Champion. He's a former NWA Tag Team Champion, former six-man Tag Team Champion, former United States World's Champion. Of course, I'm talking about the American Dream, the son of the plumber, Dusty Rhodes.
The dream will win.
Dusty Rhodes.
Oh my God, when you talk about Dusty Rhodes, like you said, you're talking about, in my opinion, one of the best wrestlers in the history of professional wrestling.
You said that about Flair once.
I said one of, I didn't say the.
Okay.
You know, that's the difference. My first recollection of Dusty Rhodes was right here in Detroit.
Starting back with Dusty Rhodes, let's just call it like it is. Like so many Adonises back then.
Mm-hmm.
Here was a guy who was kind of a fat guy who just, but he had that swagger and he had the way of captivating the audience.
He had charisma.
Yes.
Which a lot of times is more important than being able to put on all the holds.
Yes.
You know, if you can talk people into the arena, that's what Dusty Rhodes could do. He could talk people into the arena. But by no means was Dusty Rhodes a horrible wrestler.
Right.
You know, Dusty Rhodes took those huge big bumps and he was fast and all over the place in the ring when he was younger like that.
Right.
You know, up in even later years, Dusty Rhodes had a lot of speed.
Yeah.
You know, but he wasn't the one who was doing moonsaults and going over the, diving out of the ring and all that.
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes was a smart wrestler.
Right.
You know, he knew what he could do and he knew what he couldn't do.
We just talked about how he could talk people into an arena.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the best promo man in wrestling?
Ooh, wow. I'd say he's up there as one of the best. You know, him and Ric Flair are, two of the best, along with Terry Funk. Is a great promo man.
Yeah.
A lot of people had different styles.
Yeah.
I think Randy Savage was a great promo. His was different than Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes told a story in his promos, hard times. Everybody talks about hard times, the hard times promo.
Hard times, so Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty Rhodes knew how to tell that story.
Oh, absolutely.
He was a great storyteller.
We talked about in past episodes of wrestlers who make wrestlers. And Dusty Rhodes, dare I say, made a guy like Nikita Koloff, made a guy like, even as a tag team, Magnum. Once you got that stamp of approval from Dusty Rhodes, you were elevated to another level.
There's speculation and opinion that Dusty Rhodes tried to latch on to the hot star.
Okay.
Nikita Koloff was hot.
Yeah.
Magnum TA was hot.
Yeah.
The Road Warriors were hot. And Dusty Rhodes kind of put himself with them.
Gotcha.
So in a sense, he was helping get them over, but he was also getting himself over. They were rising stars.
Sure.
And I guess he thought he was helping them, but it was also keeping Dusty in that spotlight because he wasn't necessarily getting the world title shots at that time.
Right.
They were off and on.
Right. Do you think Vince was ribbing Dusty with the polka dots and everything when he came in with that and making him really look like a kind of a goof, if you will? I mean, Dusty went along with it and he went along with it great, and he had Sapphire and the whole 9 yards. But did that I mean, for me as a fan, as someone who loved Dusty Rhodes, it diminished everything that I was used to seeing him in those bloody battles with the Sheik at Kobo and him and Flair in the cage and you know. What are your thoughts on that era with Dusty?
You know, I don't think Dusty was forced into doing any of that.
Yeah.
I think Vince, you know, may have come to him. I don't know who came up with that idea. We say Vince.
Right.
But
well,
Dusty,
he's the end all.
Yeah, but Dusty made it work.
Yeah, he did.
He made it work.
Yeah.
You know, Dusty was, you know, at one point he used to wear the big feather boas and, you know, he wasn't beyond being outlandish like that.
Right.
You know, but he made it work.
Yeah.
You know, they cut the promos with him coming in, you know, talking about being, you know, Americana. That's what they were talking about first. And
riding in on the garbage truck.
Yeah. And it was a, you know, different time in Dusty's career.
Yeah.
You know, Dusty had been in the WWF before. I'm just going to say WWF.
Yeah.
You know, feuding with superstar Billy Graham.
That's true.
You know, and he had, you know, a few other opponents when he was there.
Yeah.
But he was over. And he was over with the polka dots.
I was
with
just
Sapphire, all that stuff was over.
Yeah, one of the highlights of my life, you know, as a 51-year-old man, was being in the ring with Dusty, Terry Funk, and you.
Oh yeah.
Tell me your memories of that.
I couldn't believe it, really. You know, I couldn't believe that I was in the ring with them, and we were like standing in the ring together, looking at each other like, what's going on here? But that's one of my most memorable matches. I have a picture. And we got to make sure we get that of me holding up all three of your arms.
Oh.
You know, Terry Funk, Dusty Rhodes, and the Rude Boy, we're all holding our hands up in victory.
That was
even though you won the match.
Yeah. Hey man, me being in there in that ring, I was already a win. It was already a win.
Just being in there. Being in there.
And on top of that,
that was at the gathering.
It was at the gathering of the Juggalos, speaking with those guys and talking with them, because you were basically the liaison for the promotion with those guys at that particular thing. How was it dealing with them backstage?
It wasn't hard at all. You know, I sat there and talked to them, and you know, when I'm talking to wrestlers, I don't care who it is.
Right.
You know, I'm talking to them just like, you know, I'm talking to you. Dusty
Rhodes, is he on your Mount Rushmore or not? Now you have limited space.
How many people are on Mount Rushmore? 4? Oh, geez. I need two mountains, man. I need 2 mountains. You know, because Dusty Rhodes, I would say, is one of my all-time favorites. But I said my Mount Rushmore is incomplete.
Right.
So I don't want to add any names.
Absolutely.
Until I want to complete it, which I may never complete it. I don't know. One of my earliest memories of Dusty was on Big Time Wrestling when he was coming back to the territory.
Okay.
He had his run with Dick Murdoch,
right?
But he was coming back as a solo wrestler,
right?
And on TV they showed Dusty Rhodes was laying down, and he had the feather boa on, and he talked about how he was more beautiful than Barbara Streisand, prettier than Muhammad Ali, and that was part of his promo.
Yeah.
He was laying down the whole time,
oh my goodness.
Before he actually came back. And when he came back, he of course had his big feud with the Sheik.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. My favorite memory of Dusty Rhodes is seeing it live when him and Sheik teamed against Kevin Sullivan and Dick Murdoch.
Yes.
And that was at Kobo. Later on, he was a man who could still draw for the Great American Bash.
Yeah.
It was in the 90s.
You're right.
And he still drew money. I mean, so much that...
You're talking about Dusty or the Sheik?
I'm talking about the Sheik.
Yes.
With Dusty.
With Dusty.
Dusty calling the Sheik to come do that was brilliant.
Well, there's a story behind that. Dusty was skeptical about doing it.
Really?
Kevin Sullivan talked him into it.
Really?
To book the Sheik for the Great American Bash because of Kevin Sullivan. You know, Kevin Sullivan was a huge Sheik fan.
Oh yeah.
You know, and he said, "Man, I guarantee." And they drew. That was a big house.
It was a beautiful.
And I remember that the Sheik. We're talking about Dusty, but the Sheik rolled in the limo. Got out the car, and everybody's looking at the Sheik walking in his suit with no shirt on.
Hey, that's classic.
But Dusty
shit.
Rhodes, man, you know, going back to him, you know, he's one of the all-time greats,
He
man.
really is.
I mean, Florida, Georgia, WWE, you know, Dusty, you know, did it all.
He was
know?
also instrumental behind the scenes
Yes,
as well as
yes.
an executive producer of World
Right.
Championship
A
Wrestling.
flair for the gold.
Flair for the gold.
You know, all of those early pay-per-views, you know,
Yes.
Starrcade.
Starrcade
You
was
know,
one of his brainchilds.
yeah, those were
Yes.
that was Dusty Rhodes' booking. A lot of people talk about the Dusty finishes.
Yeah.
I used to love all that crazy
Me
stuff,
too,
man.
Me too.
You know, that was before we got in the business, so we didn't know,
Right.
you know, what all that was all
And nor
about.
did we care.
Nor did we care. We were going to watch that following week, regardless.
Yes,
you know,
sir. Yes,
but those were great matches, man. I remember Dusty Rhodes coming out to one more silver dollar. I ain't gonna let them catch me, no. I ain't gonna let them catch the Midnight Rider.
Speaking of, became the Midnight Rider.
He became the Midnight Rider.
when he ran out of town.
Yes, yes.
And he came in with the
Came
hood.
back.
And,
Yeah,
was
but
the
he
Midnight
did.
Rider.
Dusty Rhodes called himself Uvalde Slim. You know,
I said Stagger Lee, but that was
that was
Jimmy Valley.
JYD.
Oh no, JYD.
JYD.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
Everybody had a hood. Everybody
Yep,
had
they,
one.
you know, they had what, the Dirty Yellow Dog.
Uh-huh.
I think that was Barry Windham.
Barry Windham,
You know,
that's right.
A lot of people had to leave town and come back as a
Yeah.
different persona. You know, but Dusty Rhodes, man, he, you know, huge feud in Florida with Kevin Sullivan. You know, that's where he had his big babyface turn, was down there
Yes.
in Florida.
Yes.
You know, because he was a bad guy
Yes,
in
he
Florida.
was. Yes, he was.
And
One of the most hated.
right, and he turned. Maybe it was Gary Hart and Pak Song. Pak Song Nam. He was a big Korean wrestler, but you know, funny physique and big head. But he
Right.
was over as a heel.
Right.
You know, and he was. I think Dusty was teaming with Pak Song Nam,
Wow.
and maybe against the Grams, and Dusty came back in and cleaned house, and you know, he did his thing, and you know, he was over like crazy, you know, in Florida.
Well, we're here at the end of the episode. Your final words on the great Dusty Rhodes.
Oh man, Dusty Rhodes, the American dream. Dusty
Truly
Rhodes,
is.
that's all I can say. Great, he was the American dream.
He was the American dream. So long for this episode of Wrestling Real Talk. He's AT Hug. I'm Rudy Hill. We'll see you at the next one.